You want to know how a quiet, lakeside homecoming turned into the craziest federal sting this town, or maybe the whole country, has ever seen? Well, buckle up, because 3 squad cars, 2 ambulances, and a fire truck boxed in my moving truck at 2:47 in the afternoon on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. That was the first sign things were about to go sideways. And standing right behind all those flashing lights, with a look that could peel paint, was Serafina Whitlock, HOA president, queen of the pearl white Lexus, and, as it turns out, not even close to who she pretended to be. Let me back up a sec. I'm Decker Hawthorne, 34, Federal Maritime Safety Inspector by trade, and, after 3 years of ramen, double shifts, and a truck held together with faith and duct tape, finally the owner, well, almost, of the Willowbrook Lake House. I bought it back at a government auction for $847,000, all cash. It was my family's lost legacy. We'd lost it decades ago, during the savings and loan mess. And growing up, I used to dream about fishing off that dock and maybe, if the stories were true, finding the secret rooms my great-grandpa swore were under the house. So there I was, still tasting diesel and lake water, staring at my new old home, when Serafina shows up, hair shellacked, pink blazer, a folder hugged to her chest like the nuclear codes. She starts barking orders at the cops, yelling that I'm trespassing on federal heritage property, demanding my arrest. And I'll be honest, for a split second, I wondered if I'd somehow gotten scammed. But nope, the auction receipt was burning a hole in my pocket. And if there's one thing the federal government knows, it's paperwork. Roberto, my mover, froze with my great-granddad's rocker in his hands, looking like he wanted no part of whatever storm was brewing. "Ma'am, I think there's some mistake," I said, waving the deed, the title, the receipt. Heck, I practically had a birth certificate for the place. But Serafina just laughed, cold and brittle, telling the cops I was a scammer impersonating a veteran, maybe even armed and dangerous. Yeah, that happened. I was wearing jeans and a flannel. The most dangerous thing on me was a multi-tool on my belt. The cops showed up in force, hands on their holsters, and suddenly my little homecoming was looking like a scene out of a bad movie. I went full inspector mode, hands visible, voice steady, telling them who I was, showing my federal ID, laying out the paperwork. Serafina flashed her heritage certificate, but the lead cop, Morrison, by his tag, wasn't buying it. He starts comparing seals, checking signatures, calling dispatch. Pretty soon, he's got this look that says he smells a rat. He points out the federal seal doesn't match, the signature is off. Serafina turns a shade of pink that does not exist in nature. That's when things take a turn. Morrison's got questions about the property's odd federal markings and asks me if I know what used to be here. All I know is rumors, naval testing, World War II, weirdly beefed-up docks. But Serafina starts pushing this line about Revolutionary War history, which makes no sense since the lake didn't even exist back then. Morrison's partner pulls out an old survey map from 1942, shows the place was underwater until the Army Corps came in. You could hear a pin drop. But Serafina won't let up, starts going on about invested resources, and my inspector antennae go up. That's code for money changing hands. Us, says we'll be arrested for destroying history, but he's not having it. We head inside, and I start noticing stuff. Heavy-duty electrical conduits, steel-framed windows, a concrete pad in the back. That clearly held some big equipment. Then there's this vault-like steel door in the main room. The key the auction folks gave me fits. That's not normal for an abandoned house, you know what I mean? So I open it, and boom, steel stairs, darkness, a smell of old metal and ozone. Morrison leads with his flashlight, we go down, and what do we find? A fully equipped underground command center. Not World War II old, new. Racks of comms gear, computers, stuff that was installed decades after the war. The whole place is spotless, humming. This is not the abandoned relic I thought I bought. This is an active facility. Suddenly, this is way above everyone's pay grade. Upstairs, Serafina's talking fast on the phone, all national security and federal protocols, and I'm thinking, rental cars and zero coordination. Not how real feds operate. Morrison's not buying it. Then out of nowhere, my neighbor Eleanor Vasquez, tough as nails, steps up. She's been watching this whole mess unfold for years. She calls out the fake agents, lays out the whole scam. They've been collecting federal grants for fake restoration, convincing neighbors to donate property, running a criminal enterprise under the cover of heritage preservation. Serafina's composure crumbles. Collins, the lead agent, turns white. Eleanor's got 5 years of proof, pictures, bank records, everything. Right then, real federal backup arrives. Coast Guard, FBI, the works. They swarm in, handcuffs come out. The fake agents and Serafina go down hard. Turns out, the heritage preservation gig was someone waving fake authority in your face, telling you what you can't do on your own land. Where do you draw the line between protection and control, between history and hustle? Drop your thoughts, question, and refusing to back down when the answer smells like a scam. Let me tell you, just when I thought that mess at Willowbrook Lake was finally behind me, just when the dust was settling, and I was ready to actually live in the house I'd spent half my life chasing, it turned out that this rabbit hole went a whole lot deeper than anybody thought. And if you were hoping for a nice, stamped with more warnings than a bottle of rat poison, and said, "Inspector Hawthorne, there's something you need to know about your great-grandfather." Yeah, let that sink in. Turns out, he wasn't just some civilian contractor keeping busy during the war. He was the lead engineer for something called Operation Deep Harbor, a secret network of submarine communication cables, running from Willowbrook Lake all the way out to the Atlantic, back in the days when losing contact meant losing everything. And you know what else? Those 12 properties that Serafina's gang conned out of desperate families across 3 states. They were all former Deep Harbor sites. What started as a garden variety scam had mutated into a full-on intelligence operation. Foreign services, big money, national security. Suddenly, my little victory was looking less like a homecoming and more like the opening act of a Cold War spy novel. I asked Agent Blackstone how much money we were. Dark. In less than 2 weeks, coordinated raids swept through Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, places you'd never think of as hotbeds of espionage. Bradley Whitlock's construction business? Just a shell company for wiring up all those historic homes with surveillance gear. By the time the dust settled, Serafina was looking at enough federal charges to keep her busy for the rest of her natural life, and then some. Eleanor Vasquez, the quiet neighbor who'd been keeping records from her kitchen window, ended up testifying before Congress. Can you picture that? 73 years old, standing there with her folder of handwritten notes, telling senators how a handful of greedy crooks tried to weaponize America's love of history against itself. But you want to know the part that really got me? It wasn't the money or the classified briefings or even the arrests. It was what happened next, after the headlines faded and the real work began. Willowbrook didn't just become a local businesses boomed from real tourism, not the fake kind. And somewhere along the line, I realized I'd picked up more than a property deed. I'd found a team. Dr. Marina Coastworth, someone who thinks they've perfected Serafina's playbook. Sometimes the universe puts you exactly where you need to be, even if it's the last place you expected. Sometimes justice is just stubborn. People refusing to let go, one lake, one town, one family at a time. So if you ever find yourself staring down a smooth-talking official, an HOA with too much power, or just a neighbor who seems a